before Parliament in the next couple of hours. Hassan Rouhani is also expected to outline his vision for the country's future in an address. He was confirmed in his new role by the Supreme Leader in a ceremony on Saturday.
When it comes to international relations, we should take new steps in order to elevate the position of Iran on the basis of our national interest and do away with oppressive sanctions. The horizons ahead of us are clear. With the proper plans and guidance from our Supreme Leader, these opportunities can materialize.
But Rouhani has a big job ahead of him. At the moment, a new bill for sanctions. It's working its way through the U.S. Congress. Politicians there want to punish Iran because of its nuclear program. But the White House is concerned new sanctions are badly timed and wants to wait to hear from Rouhani. If the sanctions do go ahead, they would strengthen already existing embargoes on the import, purchase and transport of Iranian crude oil and natural gas. The U.S. is hoping to cut its exports by a further 1 million barrels a year. Sanctions put in place previously by the U.S., the UN and other nations have frozen the assets of Iran's central bank, and they banned financial transactions with Iranian banks and institutions. There are tough penalties as well for countries and institutions that continue to trade with Iran. Let's get the latest now from the Iranian capital, Tehran, with Soraya Leni. Soraya, the new president, as he comes into the job, has got a number of challenges ahead, not the least of which are economic.
You're quite right. He has enormous challenges facing him and enormous expectations, in fact, from the voting public who want to see something different. Rouhani's promised change. They just want to see this enacted. How he'll do that, however, is the challenge. As you mentioned, major economic challenges. In the last 2 years, Iran's currency has devalued by about 70% against the US dollar. There's inflation, unemployment, and other issues like that, domestic issues he has to face. But economists and analysts say basically you can't fix the domestic situation with the economy without addressing the foreign policy concerns, specifically those regarding sanctions, as you mentioned before. Now, these sanctions are on Iran's central bank and, of course, on oil exports, perhaps the most damaging of which were introduced in July last year, the European oil export ban, of course, and those on the central bank stopping the trading of many Iranian businesses and, in fact, the government as well with the outside world. And, of course, Iran is a petrochemical-based economy, so stopping those oil exports is damaging. Some reports say exports have dropped by about 40%. Add to those any possible new sanctions by the House or the Senate from the United States. And what they're hoping to do is basically wipe out Iran's oil industry, stop oil exports, in fact, and that's going to be incredibly damaging. So somehow Rouhani has to come to some kind of an agreement, fix this domestic situation, but also fix this foreign policy problem to remove these sanctions as he's promised.
And as far as Iran's relations with the international community and with its regional partners, what can we expect there?
Well, that's right. He has these challenges as well. Speaking regionally, this morning he is meeting with representatives from different countries who have come for this inauguration ceremony, yesterday's ceremony and today at Parliament as well, discussing different things. Two of the people that are present there, representatives from both Iraq and Syria, Iran's neighbours, and Iran has very high security concerns regarding what's going on in those countries, specifically Syria with the civil war there. Iran, of course, backs the government and said that says there should be no foreign interference, no military action, and has kept that line basically since that Syrian conflict has started. Regarding Iraq, of course, an important neighbour, important trading partner as well with Iran, but also regarding security concerns too. So this is on the agenda this morning. Present also today, Javier Solana, the former foreign policy chief of the European Union, who was involved in nuclear talks with Hassan Rouhani when Rouhani was in fact the nuclear negotiator for Iran, much before this presidency post. So he's got all of these challenges to face. He has to discuss Iran's policies with the rest of the world. Seems like he's hit the ground running, though, this morning, if these meetings are anything to take into consideration. He's not into the job, not even 24 hours, and he's already started talking foreign policy and meeting and greeting those who will have future dealings with Iran.
Soraya, thanks for that. Soraya Leni live for us in Tehran.